Hi everyone, today I am really excited to be going through the One Piece fan letter episode. Now this episode I don't think relates to or correlates with any of the other episodes in One Piece. I think it was just a random episode that they made, just a little, not a spin-off, but you know what I mean. And in the episode, it's this little girl who is a massive fan of Nami, and she's written Nami a fan letter. And the whole episode takes place when the Straw Hat crew are returning to Sabaody after they spent 2 years apart training. And this little girl wants to give Nami her fan letter. So it just follows her on her journey trying to give Nami her letter. My literal first thoughts as soon as I put this episode on was the animation. Wow. I had only seen all that animation pre-time skip, so leading up to Marineford, and I'm actually now in the middle of the Fishman Island arc. So I've seen a bit of that animation, which gets a whole lot better, but nothing compared to this. It was such a shock. It was actually quite jarring looking at that, wow. That's crazy. Just also the crispness. I don't know how to explain it. It was so crispy. I don't know if you can really say animation is crispy, but here we are. I think one aspect that really stood out to me with the animation style was the directing. The directing was just on point. The different angles that they had, it was so different to what I had seen before. You know, at the start when the girl was, I don't know if it's her mum or her just guardian, the person that she lives with, and there's the shot of her I think it's in the doorway, and it's a completely different shot to what I would see in the rest of One Piece. I feel like One Piece, although it has different angles, it's kind of head on, whereas this had different angles, different shots, and that fit in really nicely with the storyline and everything that was happening in the story. Not only the different camera angles, but also the transitions. All of the different transitions throughout this episode was just on point. There's that scene where the brothers are in Marineford War, and you see it's going through his memory sequence of the older brother, and the two brothers are interacting, and I think the older brother, he throws a gun, and then the memory sequence jumps into another memory sequence, and the older brother then catches his own gun, and then the two brothers go on into their conversation. That was such a cool transition, and it was so smooth, and I feel throughout the whole episode it was just these continuous smooth transitions. It actually kind of reminded me of, those movies and TV shows where they do all the shots in one take. So it's just this one long shoot and one long camera angle. Well, they have different camera angles, but the gist of it is that they don't stop recording, they just keep going. It kind of felt like that throughout the episode. There's also this puzzle motif where it's just a black screen, and it's showing these white kind of puzzle pieces all fitting into place, or it's slowly fitting into place. And it's just such a clever way of telling us that everything is clicking into place, or it's falling into place, without actually telling us that this is happening. It's not a little girl is literally saying, oh, that makes sense. Oh, I should actually do this. That it's a visual story, basically. It's implying it to us, not telling us straight up. Adding to the different camera angles that they were showing, it was so interesting to see Marineford in a different light. It felt like I was seeing more of a close-up of what was happening rather than an overall depiction of every battle and exactly what's going up in more of a overall sense, where these scenes with the brothers where all the ice is collapsing, it was a full close-up of what really was happening during that time. And even the camera angles of the ice, you were kind of standing underneath the ice falling, and you felt I felt like I was a part of the war, I was standing there right with those brothers in the war. And that was really cool that I got to immerse myself into it in that sort of way. This one is actually a bit of a funny one, because at the end of the episode, I kind of sat back, and as I was thinking about the episode, I was trying to recall all of the characters' names, and I could not for the life of me remember one, except for like the benevolent king of the waves. I couldn't, even that's not really even a name, but I couldn't remember any of them. And I thought that I had just completely missed it somehow. But then I did a quick Google search and I saw that actually the characters didn't have any names. And I felt like that was so clever, the way that they didn't have any names throughout the whole story. It's kind of this perspective and depiction of everyday people in One Piece. And these are the people that, at least for me, I don't really think of throughout One Piece. I only think of the main characters or the side characters that come in and my thoughts on them. I don't really think about what these ordinary citizens are up to. And the fact that these characters don't have names, it ties into that whole perspective and aspect of the episode. But even though the characters didn't have names, I still felt like I knew them, like they had been a part of this whole story in One Piece the whole time. And I was just following like a spin-off or a different kind of movie, like mini movie of these characters that I'd seen this whole time. So it was so clever that the way that this episode was built to develop these characters in a way that I actually felt really connected to them by the end of it in 20 minutes. And that's actually something that is so great. And what One Piece does so well is that in a short space of time, and I say short, One Piece is massive and there's so many episodes, but when you really think about it, there are so many characters. Like there are so many characters that enter the scene in One Piece, and the fact that they can build Oda and even the team behind this episode because I actually don't know if this was from Oda or not. It was just like a random episode. Let me know in the comments. I actually didn't look that up. But yeah, the fact that Oda can build these characters in such a short amount of time. There's so many characters, but a lot of them you feel like you already know. And it's such a great way to tell a story. But yeah, I honestly felt emotionally connected to the characters by the end of it. So they did a good job of developing those characters. And Nami herself just looks Nami. There we go. The little girl just looks so much like Nami. And I don't know if that's intended or if it's a coincidence or if it's like surely that was by design. Because when she was younger, before she even knew Nami, she had the orange hair. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it was a nice little touch that she looked and kind of she was kind of like a young Nami. So that was interesting. And I actually liked her character throughout. As I said, I grew attached to these characters, and she was such an innocent, strong little girl, and also brave and fearless. She was a brave and fearless little girl throughout the whole thing. I also really enjoyed the benevolent King of the Waves character. I felt like I could actually really relate to him because that's how I react whenever I see Chopper literally do anything. He's just so adorable. Of course, in every arc in One Piece, there has to be that one asshole, and that was that Marine. I don't actually think he even had a name, but that Marine that shoved the girl's face into the ground, did not like him. You don't do that. You don't do that to anyone, because say no to violence. Obviously, we don't want to be violent. That scene made me so mad. Following on from like the different camera angles that they showed in the Marineford War, I found it so interesting being able to see or get more of an insight into the interactions between like the non-main characters in the war. That specific scene that I mentioned with all the ice collapsing around the brothers, that was particularly, I guess that one really stood out to me. That for me actually put the whole war in a completely new light, in a completely new perspective for me. I felt like it really showed just how gruesome the war is. I mean, obviously in Marineford, there's like lots of fighting, lots of blood, lots of people getting killed, but showing that just those close-ups of such a gruesome scene was pretty impactful. There's a scene within that one with the ice collapsing where the two brothers are racing to try and find each other, and one of them is stuck in the ice and he's yelling out for the older brother, trying to figure out where that older brother is. And then they find each other, and the younger brother then yells out to him, telling him to just run and to just get away. Even though that was such a short moment and short scene within the whole episode, it was really sad. I felt really sad for them, and I don't even really know their names, which is wild. One of my favorite parts, I think, out of the episode would have to be the relationship between the two brothers. There's that scene where they're in the bar and the older brother is saying that he doesn't like his brother, but then it pans out to all of like these memories that the brother is having of the two of them and their relationship, and in the Marineford War, and also there's like a conversation that they're having maybe before the war. Then he realizes that like he actually cares a lot about his brother, and he knows that his brother cares a lot about him. There's that specific scene where the younger brother is yelling at the older brother to just run away, and in that moment the older brother does start running away, but then he sees Luffy and Ace and their brotherly bond, and that essentially changed his life, where he turned around and went and saved his own brother. And it kind of changed his perspective on his whole relationship with his brother. Even though Luffy is on the other side of this battle, his words and his actions resonated so deeply with the Marine that it changed his life and his perspective. He's showing this appreciation, admiration, and empathy for what is essentially his enemy in this whole battle. For me, this resonated with wars in real life. I mean, there's these governing bodies and these powerful entities that just decide that one another is the enemy, or that this one side is the enemy, and that they all have to be killed. And these Marines are taught that the pirates are the enemy, and that they're the ones that you need to stop and that you need to kill. And it just instigates all of this bloodshed, and it's just not necessary. It's really not. War is just not necessary. This is probably like super far-fetched, but for some reason this whole thing reminded me of the situation that happened in World War I, where they just had a complete ceasefire and truce on Christmas Eve, and the two sides just started playing soccer with each other. Like these people are supposed to be enemies. They're supposed to hate each other. They literally just spent so long killing each other, wounding each other, that now that they've come together, it just like is wild, the fact that they did that. And I guess that's just like the theme that comes into it, highlighting that there is always two sides to the war, and there's always going to be the individual people that need to be looked at. Moving on to more lighter aspects of the episode, I really enjoyed seeing the everyday lives of the people in One Piece. Like, we only get to see the main characters and how they're impacted, but not like the ordinary citizens and how they're impacted by these massive events that's happening around the world. It was so interesting being able to see how they're reacting to everything that the Straw Hats are doing, and all their little discussions and convos that are going on amidst just mass world chaos that is occurring at this time. I also really enjoyed the bar scene, where all of the soldiers and the patrons of the bar are just out there arguing about who was the strongest in the Marineford War, just in general, and who's the greatest swordsman. It's like a glimpse into the everyday discussions that would happen in real life. Like, there'd be gossip, there'd be arguments, there'd be just all that business that's going on there. So that was really cool. And I especially liked when Zoro and Sanji entered the scene. At first, I think one of the soldiers called him a moss head and were just going on insulting Zoro. And then Zoro comes in and just whacks them all over the head, and they're all like, what did I say? What happened? And then later on with Sanji, and one of them was like, no way is Sanji like the strongest, that this is, don't even bring him into conversation. And then we see Sanji's the one that instigated that, like, what about Blackfoot? And they were like, no, he's not even close to being the strongest. And then you just see him whack everyone over the head and they're all just the same, like, what the hell? I love that they kept that little bit of humor, because it's just so Sanji, and it's just so Zoro to do something like that. Seeing the town itself was also pretty cool, where the little girl was, getting through all the crowds and getting through the alleyways in the town, because in Sabaody, I didn't really see much of the towns and what was happening. It kind of like kind of a dead town, except for like when the celestial dragons come through and then you see more of them. But seeing that it was actually a township and seeing that it was actually a town and people were were just going about their everyday business was, I guess, a little slice of life, which was cool. One aspect of this episode that I just really, really liked was the whole, I guess, theme of strong female role models. This little girl, she sees Nami as like this amazing role model, and she even says in that scene where they're in the library and Usopp's bugs are chasing after them, that Nami changed her life because she proved to her that you can be strong without any powers that come from like the devil fruit powers or anything that the others have to enhance their strength. She was strong without any of that. The women in One Piece, they have their quirks, and some are definitely more stereotypical than others. But one thing I found throughout all of One Piece is that there are so many strong women. And I don't mean that in the physical sense, because like, don't get me wrong, there are some like crazy strong females in One Piece. Look at Boa, like what the heck did that come from? And even like Dadan, and there's just so many, but I mean that more in the sense of intelligence. Like there's so many intelligent women in One Piece. Just looking at the main characters and the Straw Hats, there's Nami, who is this extremely amazing navigator who is just so street smart, and she uses all of her strategical skills and her wit and intelligence to overcome any physical weaknesses that she might have during battles, and she uses that to win those battles. And that really shone through with her fight with Khalifa back in CP9. I really loved that fight because it just showed how much she had developed and become stronger over time. Then there's Robin, who is just so book smart, and she has this wealth of knowledge of people and the world around her that she uses to judge whatever situation that she's in. I haven't really seen a lot of battles with her yet, but whenever there is like a battle that the Straw Hats are in, she's there to save the day a lot of the time. She saves all these members of the crew when they're on the brink of falling somewhere and like seriously injuring themselves. And it's actually made me think, all of her knowledge and the experience that she has had a tough life. She's had to go through the absolute trenches of people just letting her down again and again and again. She's had to bring herself up every single time. She's had everyone against her for so long, and she's had to put up with that. And that has made her this extremely capable woman. And that's actually the same as Nami with Arlong. She stood up and took on the role of being, Arlong's navigator, just so that she can protect her town. That was such a brave thing to do. And through all of like their hard work and their experiences, they've become these strong, amazing women. I think this aspect of the episode was what was so important to me and what I took out the most out of the whole episode, because there's so many Hollywood TV shows and movies these days that depicts lead women as these like girl bosses without any merit to the term. Every woman that you see that's on the screen is just automatically strong and automatically like smart and good at everything that they do just because they're a woman. And for me, that just completely disregards any kind of hard work and dedication that goes into becoming strong and becoming intelligent and a capable woman. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I love One Piece so much, and just anime in general, is that it has so much more depth, diversity, and better storytelling, better character development than any of that just absolute trash that is coming out of Hollywood these days. But anyway, I feel like I'm ranting, and that is just a full different discussion for another day. I also love how in the end, the girl is the one that ends up stopping the weapon from firing onto the Thousand Sunny and literally saving all of the Straw Hats. She courageously went onto the Marine ship, which is full of Marines, then used her wit to fool them into thinking she had the passkey that would set off the weapon. It just shows how much of an impact strong role models can have on the younger generation, even older generation, and even the same generation. Honestly, when I thought I would make this video, I just thought there wouldn't be enough content for me to talk about because it's the one episode. I mean, all of my videos that I've been going through are whole arcs, so there's just so much to talk about. But once I started writing notes and my own thoughts and everything, I realized that there's actually so much to talk about in this episode. There's so many like hidden meanings to things and so many visual storytelling. And I feel like the story itself is quite simple. I mean, it's this little girl who is a massive fan of Nami, and she's racing behind the clock trying to deliver her fan letter to Nami and to get to meet her. But because it is this like straightforward story, it means that there's so many other different little stories that are branching off just from that one main story. And those little stories can be complicated and has all of their hidden meanings. And there's so many layers to the episode when you really like start to jot down and think about it. Talking about hidden meanings, there's probably so much that I missed that I did not talk about today and I didn't pick up on. So as usual, please let me know your thoughts on the episode. You know, what were your favorite moments and what are the themes that you got out of it and what resonated with you the most with the episode? Well, that's it for today. I hope you all have an amazing night, evening, lunch, day, whatever it is over there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.